All right, let's dive into the fascinating world of self-esteem today. We're going deep with this intriguing blog post from the Multicultural Counseling Service. It's called How We Build a Self-Esteem,
Yeah.
and it's from June 3rd, 2020. It delves into some really interesting ideas about how we see ourselves and our worth. It's really insightful coming from the perspective of counseling and psychotherapy. I'm really curious to unpack this with you.
Me too. It's amazing, how much our self-image really does affect our lives. This blog post actually digs into the work of Carl Rogers. He was a pioneer in humanistic psychology, and he was really focused on the concept of the self.
Hmm. So not just who we are like on the surface, but like how we understand ourselves like deep down.
Exactly. Rogers saw the self as this ever-changing puzzle. Like every experience we have adds a new piece. It really shapes who we are.
Makes sense. So it's not like we're born with a fixed self-image then.
Yeah.
It's always being built.
Yeah. Exactly. And those puzzle pieces come from everywhere. Parents, friends, even social media. It can really influence how we see ourselves. Just think back to your childhood for a second. Maybe someone told you were really good at drawing. That becomes a bright, shiny piece in your self-image puzzle, right?
Right.
Or maybe you received a negative comment about your appearance that kind of stuck with you. Maybe a slightly darker piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. It's amazing how those early experiences can shape us for years to come. I'm already thinking about some of those puzzle pieces from my own childhood. But how does this self-image connect to our self-esteem?
Ooh. Our self-image is really the foundation for self-esteem. The
Right.
way we see ourselves directly impacts how we value ourselves. It's like, imagine self-esteem as a bank account.
Oh, I like this.
Positive experiences, like compliments or achieving a goal, those are deposits into that account. They boost our sense of worth.
Oh.
Negative experiences, like criticisms or failures, those act like withdrawals. They chip away at our self-esteem.
So it's not just about how we see ourselves, but how those perceptions make us feel. It's about our emotional balance sheet. Everyone listening, I want you to take a moment and picture your own self-esteem bank account. Is it flush with funds, or are you running a bit low? It's a powerful way to think about it, isn't it?
It really is. And this brings us to another interesting concept, the ideal self. It's the vision we have of the perfect version of ourselves, the person we want to be. And this is where things can get a little tricky.
I can see that. The ideal self can be a double-edged sword. We're constantly bombarded with images of perfection in the media and online. It's easy to fall into the trap of chasing an unattainable ideal.
Exactly. And the blog post points out that striving for an ideal self that's unrealistic can actually damage our self-esteem. When we constantly compare ourselves to an impossible standard, we set ourselves up for disappointment.
Yeah, it's like trying to fit into a pair of jeans that are 2 sizes too small. Frustrating and ultimately pointless. So how do we reconcile our real self with this ideal self without feeling constantly inadequate?
Well, the key is to shift our focus from perfection to progress. Instead of aiming for an unattainable ideal, we should concentrate on personal growth and appreciate the journey. Celebrate your accomplishments, no matter how small. Acknowledge how far you've come.
It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress, right? Now, the article also mentions something called the Johari window. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. The Johari window is a fantastic tool for understanding how we see ourselves and how others perceive us. Imagine a window with 4 panes. There's the open area. Those are things we know about ourselves that others see too, like our sense of humor. Then there's the hidden area. This represents things we keep private, like our fears or insecurities. Then we have the blind spot, aspects of ourselves that others see but we don't, like maybe we interrupt people without realizing it. And finally, the unknown area. This represents things hidden from both ourselves and others, like potential talents we haven't discovered yet.
Wow. It's like we're looking at ourselves through 4 different lenses. You know what? I remember having a real aha moment with the Johari window. A friend pointed out that I apologized way too much. It was a total blind spot for me. It was awkward to hear at first. But it really helped me become more aware of that habit and start to change it.
That's a perfect example of how the Johari window can help us grow. Feedback from others can be so helpful, especially from trusted friends or colleagues. It can shed light on our blind spots and help us to see ourselves more clearly.
It's all about getting different perspectives, right? And speaking of understanding ourselves and others, the article emphasizes the importance of empathy, not just in therapy, but in everyday life.
Right. Empathy is so important. It's the ability to step into someone else's shoes and understand their feelings. It's like seeing the world through their eyes. When we cultivate empathy, it creates deeper connections and understanding in all of our relationships.
It's about moving beyond our own limited perspective, right? Yeah. And this ties in beautifully with the concept of unconditional positive regard. Another key idea from Carl Rogers.
Absolutely. Unconditional positive regard is all about accepting and valuing someone, regardless of their actions or choices. It's recognizing their inherent worth as a human being.
So it's about separating the person from their behavior, not judging, just accepting them for who they are. That sounds incredibly powerful, especially in a therapeutic setting.
It is, and I've seen the positive impact of unconditional positive regard firsthand. I remember working with a client who had struggled with addiction for years. He'd faced a lot of judgment and rejection, but when he was offered a safe, non-judgmental space, he finally opened up and started on his road to recovery. It was incredible to witness his transformation.
That's a powerful story. It shows how much we crave acceptance and understanding, especially when we're feeling vulnerable. This makes me think of the story in the article about Gloria and her experience in therapy with Carl Rogers.
Right. Gloria's story is a great example of the impact of empathy and unconditional positive regard. Do you remember what she said to Rogers during their session?
Yeah. She said, "I feel more comfortable the way you are talking to me in a low voice, and I don't feel you will be so harsh on me." That's such a simple statement, but it reveals so much about the power of feeling safe and heard, especially when we're trying to build self-esteem.
It's so true. Gloria's words remind us of the importance of self-compassion. We need to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a close friend.
It's about silencing that inner critic and offering ourselves a little grace, isn't it? This deep dive is already packed with insights. We've covered so much ground, but there's still more to explore about building self-esteem.
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover about self-compassion, setting boundaries, and challenging negative self-talk.
Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be back soon to delve even deeper into this fascinating topic. Welcome back, everyone. I don't know about you, but I'm already feeling inspired to give my self-esteem a boost after that last segment.
Yeah. It's amazing how understanding these psychological concepts can be so empowering. We were just discussing Gloria and her yearning for gentleness in therapy. It's a powerful reminder that self-compassion is so crucial on this journey of building self-esteem.
It is. It's about recognizing that we're all human, imperfections and all, and treating ourselves with kindness,
Yeah.
even when we make mistakes. But how do we actually put this self-compassion into practice? It feels a bit abstract.
That's a great question. And you're right, self-compassion can feel a little vague sometimes. But think of it like this. When a friend is struggling, what do? Do you criticize them harshly? Or do you offer support and understanding?
Well, ideally, I try to be a good friend and offer support, but I'm not always so kind to myself. My inner critic can be pretty harsh.
That's definitely something we all struggle with. But remember that self-compassion is about extending that same kindness and understanding inward. It's about silencing that inner critic and replacing those negative thoughts with positive affirmations.
So it's like we're becoming our own best friend.
Exactly. And speaking of friends, the article touches on something that can be really helpful in boosting our self-esteem: setting healthy boundaries.
Oh, boundaries. How do those fit into the picture?
Well, think about it. When we constantly say yes to things we don't want to do, or allow others to treat us in ways that diminish our worth, we're essentially making withdrawals from that self-esteem bank account.
Ah, that makes sense. So boundaries are about protecting our emotional energy and preserving our sense of self-worth.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing your well-being and learning to say no to things that drain you or don't align with your values. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but setting clear boundaries can be incredibly empowering.
Yeah. It's like we're drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is what I'm willing to tolerate, and this is where I draw the line. It's about respecting ourselves, right?
Absolutely. And remember, self-care is another crucial aspect of this journey. When we take care of our physical, emotional, and mental well-being, we're making deposits into that self-esteem account.
It's true. Self-care can seem indulgent, but it's really an investment in ourselves, isn't it?
It is. It's not selfish. It's essential. Think about it. When you're running on empty, it's hard to feel good about yourself. But when you prioritize things like getting enough sleep, eating nutritious foods, and engaging in activities you enjoy, you're replenishing your energy and boosting your mood.
Makes sense. It's like putting on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Exactly. And self-care can take many forms. Maybe it's taking a long bath, reading a good book, spending time in nature, or connecting with loved ones. It's about finding those activities that nourish your soul and make you feel good.
So If binge-watching reality TV helps you unwind after a stressful day, that counts as self-care, right?
Absolutely. It's about finding what works for you and prioritizing those activities that help you recharge and feel your best. Now, I want to circle back to something we discussed earlier, the self being dynamic and ever evolving. This means that self-esteem isn't a destination, it's a journey.
Oh, so it's not about achieving some perfect level of self-worth and then staying there forever.
Right.
It's about accepting that there will be ups and downs along the way.
Precisely. There will be times when our self-esteem takes a hit. We might face rejection, make mistakes, or experience setbacks. But it's important to remember that those moments don't define us.
It's about how we respond to those challenges.
Yeah.
Right? Do we let them crush us? Or do we use them as opportunities for growth?
That's exactly it. Resilience is key here. It's about learning to bounce back from adversity, to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and keep moving forward.
Yeah. It's like building a muscle, the self-esteem muscle. And like any muscle, it needs to be exercised regularly.
Exactly. And challenging negative self-talk is another important exercise, Those critical voices in our heads that tell us we're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough.
Those voices, I think we all have those, don't we? They can be so persistent and undermining.
Oh, yeah. But here's the thing. We don't have to believe them. We can learn to recognize those negative thoughts and challenge their validity.
So it's about taking those thoughts to court, so to speak, and demanding evidence.
Exactly. When a negative thought pops up, ask yourself, is this thought really true? Is there another way to look at this situation? Often, you'll find that those negative thoughts are based on distorted thinking patterns or past experiences that no longer hold true.
It's about reframing those negative narratives
Yeah.
into something more positive and realistic.
Yes. And when those negative thoughts creep in, try replacing them with positive affirmations. Remind yourself of your strength, your accomplishments, and the things you're grateful for.
I love that. It's like planting seeds of self-love
Yeah.
and watching them blossom over time.
Exactly. And remember, building self-esteem is an ongoing process. It takes time, effort, and patience. Be kind to yourself along the way. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small.
It's a journey, not a destination. Speaking of journeys, we've been on quite a ride exploring this topic, but there's still more to uncover. We'll be right back after a short break to wrap up our deep dive into the world of self-esteem. Welcome back to our deep dive into self-esteem. It's been quite a journey so far, hasn't it?
It really has. We've covered so much, from the impact of childhood experiences on our self-image to the importance of self-compassion and setting boundaries.
I know. I'm struck by how interconnected all of these concepts are. It's like they're all pieces of the same puzzle, each one essential for building a strong and healthy sense of self-worth.
You're right, they are all connected. And one piece of that puzzle that we talked about earlier is the Johari window, that fascinating tool for understanding how we see ourselves and how others perceive us.
Yeah, that really got me thinking. I was especially intrigued by the blind spot.
Yeah.
Those aspects of ourselves that others see, but we're totally unaware of. It makes you wonder, what blind spots might I have?
Right. We all have blind spots. It's just part of being human. But the good news is, we can shrink those blind spots by seeking feedback from others.
That makes sense. But it can be kind of scary, right? Asking for feedback. Especially about areas where we might not be shining. It feels vulnerable.
I understand. It can be nerve-wracking, but it's so valuable. Think of it like this. Feedback is like a mirror, reflecting back to us how we're showing up in the world. It can help us see ourselves more clearly and identify areas where we can grow.
So how do we go about seeking feedback in a way that's constructive and helpful? I don't want to just put someone on the spot, and make them uncomfortable.
Of course, you're right. It's important to be thoughtful about how we approach it. First, choose people you trust, people who have your best interests at heart, and will offer their insights with kindness and respect.
People who will be honest but not brutal.
Exactly. And be specific in your request. Instead of asking a general question like, do you think I'm a good communicator?
Yeah.
Try framing it more specifically, like, I'm working on being a more effective listener. Can you give me some feedback on how I'm doing in that area?
Oh, that's much more helpful. It gives the person a clear focus and makes it easier for them to offer specific insights.
Right. And when you receive feedback, try to listen with an open mind and a willingness to learn. Remember, feedback is a gift, even when it's challenging to hear.
It is. It's easy to get defensive. But it's more helpful to see it as an opportunity to grow.
Exactly. And you don't have to agree with every piece of feedback you receive. Take what resonates with you, what feels true, and leave the rest behind.
So it's about taking ownership of our own growth and choosing what feedback we want to act on. That feels empowering.
It is empowering. And remember, building self-esteem is a continuous process. It's not about achieving some perfect level of self-worth and then coasting. It's about making small, consistent efforts to nurture ourselves, challenge negative thoughts, and celebrate our progress.
This deep dive has really highlighted how important self-compassion is. It's like the foundation for everything else. Without it, all the positive affirmations and boundary setting in the world won't make much difference.
You're so right. Self-compassion is the key. It unlocks the door to lasting self-esteem. It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness, understanding, and forgiveness that we would offer to a dear friend.
And recognizing that we're all perfectly imperfect.
Exactly. We all make mistakes, we all have flaws, and that's okay. In fact, it's what makes us unique and interesting.
I feel like we've covered so much today, and yet there's still so much more to explore about this topic. It's like we've opened Pandora's box of self-discovery.
It has been a really enlightening journey, and I hope everyone listening feels inspired. To continue exploring their own self-esteem journey, remember, it's a journey worth taking.
Absolutely. A huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this deep dive. And to all of you listening, remember, self-esteem is a muscle that gets stronger with exercise. So be kind to yourselves, celebrate your strengths, and never give up on the journey of becoming the best version of you.
Well said. And never underestimate the incredible power of your own potential.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into self-esteem. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in yourselves.